Welcome back to a special episode of the IT and the D Show. We are broadcasting live here for the CXO Exchange here in beautiful Madison Lofts in downtown Detroit, Michigan. I am your host, Bob Waltenspiel, hanging out with the legend himself, Brian Schneebly, a.k.a. Schneebs, a.k.a. Storyteller today, a.k.a. everyone knows him.
Wow,
yeah,
that's a lot.
I'm just saying.
I'll take it.
Guests for this segment are the team from Profit Security. We got Brandon in the house, Pete in the house. How they treating you? You guys doing well?
Doing
Fantastic.
great.
This place is beautiful. Great turnout. It's been great.
Yeah.
It's been great.
It's the calm before the storm. The Lions are playing across the street
Are you
tonight.
guys staying downtown tonight?
Yeah, just around the corner.
Oh, it's going to be madness.
Where
Actually, last night. I'm going home tonight. So, yeah, I wish I would have thought forward, but yeah.
I mean, worst case scenario with the weather, you can say, hey, they canceled the flight. I have to stick downtown a day longer.
It's a good thought.
We'll keep it in the room secret safe.
Yeah.
Weather.
It's
Yeah,
good.
no one will listen to this anyway.
Yeah, we can edit
weather,
this.
yeah. So to start things off, for those not in the know, I guess give us the elevator pitch on what is Profit, and then let's dive into the industry.
Yeah, so I'll just start off. I mean, we were formed a 2.5 years ago or so, right? A bunch of security veterans in the space, and we're out there to solve a big problem in the SOC today, right? So we know that the volume alerts continues to get untenable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while technology and visibility and automation have improved over time, at the end of the day, we're still struggling with SOC capacity. We're still struggling with analysts being overrun. We're still struggling by missing our objectives in the SOC. So we built an agentic platform that effectively works just like an expert analyst would do, right?
You said agentic.
Yeah,
I know,
that's
all right.
what-
I said agentic.
I'll allow
Yeah.
it. I'll allow it.
Is that off?
We banned it.
We
That's all right,
banned
though.
it, but,
Okay.
no, but it's back on
Give
the
me a
table,
good
though.
synonym that I can use.
But every time you use agentic, it's just $1 inside the bucket.
All right, put
We
it
don't, have
out.
we don't have the bell like we do in the
It's like,
studio.
ding.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean that's what we're out there doing, right? And we've got an incredible team of engineers and security operators, and those are the problems we're trying to solve.
So I was familiar with this space going back 9 years, where I worked for when UEBA and machine learning
Sure.
hit the sim world, and it was 2 years of just educating the public.
Yeah,
And if you talk to 10 people, maybe one bought.
yeah,
And it's evolved now where we're talking, this AI thing, and whether or not you trust it or not. I know, like talking to Tom earlier, one of your colleagues was talking about like the education ramp
yeah.
for now we're getting past the machine learning game. And talk to me about are you fist pounding the table of the education that's been going on, and now you're finally seeing the fruit to the trees you planted? Or I guess walk me through what
Or is
what
the
that
pain
process was
big
like.
enough at the customer and the understanding that the second you start to have those conversations, they're like,
Yeah,
yes, yes,
that's
and
a great
yes.
question. I think the pain is there. I think the maturity of an organization also depends on where they are on the pain spectrum, right? But what we're finding is, and we did a survey a couple of months ago, what we found across the board was that about 40% of alerts are typically missed or ignored, right? Because the capacity is not there, right? At the same time, we found that 60% of organizations have actually been impacted by a critical that they ignored because they didn't think it was critical. So when you connect with a customer that's struggling with this influx of alerts and doesn't have the capacity, it's not a lot of fist pounding, but it's like, hey, there's a different approach here, right? I think there's a lot of fear in the market about, hey, we're going to displace humans and the whole thing that comes with AI in general, right? And so we try to be really clear that we're about enabling, right? We want to enable people to do their job better and faster. And I think what we're finding is organizations, because they've had the misses, because they've had the capacity issues, they're being forced to look at different things. And I think when we see like the Anthropic report that came out recently, right? It's like, hey, attackers are coming at machine speed. We need to be able to react at machine speed.
Sure.
Right.
So one of the stories I used to tell all the time, and I'm just curious as things have evolved, so that's where I'm going to be going with this.
Sure.
But we always talked about the Snowden case.
Yeah.
And basically he badged into a building he's never been into at 5:30 in the morning. He logged into a server that he's never logged into before. He switched over to a service account that he'd never accessed before. So, but if you looked at it from a traditional SOC, it was a 1 + 1 + 1 = 100, right? And they said with the new world, like we're looking for anomalies and we're looking for weird, that would have triggered every alarm in the building. He would have never have left. How has that evolved now with AI in terms of, is it still, are you looking for the weird? And when you talked about like the false the bad, the false positives and
Yeah.
like the AI hallucinations. I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around now how like that alerting has evolved, like using AI now versus old machine learning.
Yeah, so we would take the alerts that come from the different systems like you described. He badged into one place and he logged into a different computer here or whatever. Each of those alerts would get investigated, but Prophet would look at the overall scope. And so it would say, hey, is it normal for him to log into this place? No, it's not, right? And that would weigh into the investigation. And so by the end of the investigation, you have what we like to say is we do the deepest investigation that you would do if you had all the time in the world. But we typically do it in seconds using AI. And so that would conceivably have been picked up by the investigation, just like if you had all the time in the world with all of Snowden's
Right.
logins, you would get that same result.
I think the reality is in most security operation centers today is you have analysts that are forced to react to alerts. They're going to ask questions of the alert with as much time as they have. And
Sure.
oftentimes those questions come with swivel chairing between different tools.
Yeah,
Right.
Because
Right.
to them, context is key to make a decision.
100%.
Right, and when you look
Yeah.
at like when you go back to your time working in UEBA, right, or those UEBA solutions, that was just to provide more context, right?
Yeah.
But, like you could even go into not old, taking email security and where it's gone, right? Because if you have all this additional signal intelligence that you can get on any one person and their behavior, right? What's normal, what's not, right? Let alone when you were just using the example of logging into a computer first time. There are some arguments I would make on the whole Snowden case, right? And why he should have the number of things he should be able to access or do, which would have been the first time he had ever done it because of what he had built. Like, this is a whole nother great podcast. Let's do a podcast specifically on Snowden because I have some great arguments, like very in favor of some of the stuff he did. And that's right. Like, I'm going to go ahead and put that out there because this goes into like he started on the idea of like tape backups for the U.S. government. When they say, well, he was a job hopper and worked for 7 different companies. Nope, he worked for the same company from the beginning. Every single one of his companies kept getting bought out because that's how the government works. They have contracts, right, with all these different groups, right, because they outsource all of that. The company he worked for kept getting bought out. His desk stayed in the same location. His job title stayed in the same location. Just the name on his badge stayed the same. Just the company name flipped over time and time and time again. What he built was actually pretty amazing. Now, did it cost us? It did cost us because at the end of the day, instead of Google and everybody getting the government getting all that data free, they now have to pay for it, which means they're still getting the data. They just actually have to pay for it. They just can't clip in and get it free. So it's actually costing us more money, but at least we know that all that data in terms of all of our metadata, et cetera, how that's tracked through Google, all the applications you have on your phone, et cetera. So this goes back to when you talk about profit, imagine those 200 different applications on your phone that each one is saying, like when I was just working earlier on that app that I was downloading, the first question it asked me is it okay to share data or pull data from other applications?
Yeah.
It was like, no. Then I was like, is it okay to track location data, et cetera, blah, blah. No, right? The number of people that when you go back and look at the T's and C's of all those things that you signed, so there's all this data, right, that's gathered on us. So when you go back into like profit, right? The ability contextually to make decisions like when you're in a SOC, the data that you're given, and this is why EDR fails, right? You could have the best EDR, argue whatever that EDR is, doesn't really matter because if you get an alert, if the EDR itself can't say, yep, bad stop, right? And it's, this is going to be an alert, right? And someone doesn't look at that, and that one just happened to be bad. At the end of the day, the insurance company comes in and says, okay, so you guys got breached. You're blaming the EDR. The EDR says it saw it, gave you the alert. They're like, but it didn't do anything. Well, it needed you to make a decision. Right? Because there was a gray area in what was done, and we're giving you as much context as we can to say, we think this is bad. And without the additional context to pull all that together, so the old UEBA style solutions, not only pull it together, clip it together, and then say, and this is where the hope of UEBA was, these bilateral communications where the EDR can pull information in from this and say, no, that is bad. I'm going to send something over here to tell this to shut it off because that's what it's sitting on.
Yeah.
Versus the EDR, or communicate to the EDR that this is bad and it makes a decision, right? That's what the SOC team does. So having
That's what the analyst does, the
Yeah.
fully trained analyst, right? They're going to ask questions based on context, and then they're going to reason, right? And so it's pretty fascinating when you see some of these advancements move. It's not like, hey, I'm going to ask 3 questions. I'm going to ask 41 different questions potentially based on a dynamic question set that ties to the alert type. And that alert type is going to be different. If it's impossible travel, it might be different than another form of alert, right? So the context and the reasoning really does make the difference.
Absolutely, and then reaching across multiple systems too, right? So it's not, you might get an EDR alert, but you'll check the identity provider and find out, oh, they're an engineer, so it's cool. But if
Right.
they're in marketing, it's not, And so there's all of that context from all your different infrastructure is important. That's what human SOC.
or it's Bob and it's like, hey,
I mean,
Yeah, it's bad no matter what,
Always
right? So,
no.
yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
It's always no.
so I mean, the one I'm asking like a dumb sales guy, but I'm looking at this going, AI hallucinations, LLM, garbage in, garbage out,
Yeah.
data. When it's making decisions, is this based on what you input into, I guess, the SOC LLM? Is this learned behavior as time goes with analyst input? I guess talk to me through the automation process and like what gets seen. I mean, how is it double checked? Because we talked about something where they found out there was fraud. They built an automation system. It just meant their fraud went through really fast.
Yeah.
Right. Where's the double check? And I guess,
Yeah.
I asked a lot of questions and there's a little loaded.
So there's a couple things, and Brandon, you probably have some comments on this too, but fundamentally, the decision we made design-wise to base things on a RAG architecture, which means that we're grounded in truth for what the models can actually, the knowledge the models have been exposed to is effectively the truth. They can't just go make their own decisions, right? They can't make things up. And so there are some guardrails with respect to the RAG architecture.
guardrails. Yeah.
Whew, is it a bad one too?
No,
Another dollar in the...
I'm
I'm going to
trying
go
to
to
get,
the ATM real quick if you guys, so I can fill the
it's
pot
the
up.
new-
trying to
it's
get
the new
away from
synergy.
guardrails, right? And
Yeah.
try to say like, then why aren't we actually putting up like, when you want to call it checkpoints or like
Bumper
guard
bowling.
doors, right?
Fair.
Because
Okay.
like with the rails itself, like yes, you can still go over the rail,
Yeah.
right? It's still bumper bowling, getting to a certain path, but where is the point where it says no, thou shall not move beyond this point, right? Turn around.
Well, for us,
Take exit.
it's that evidence, right? So we have a plan of attack, or a plan of investigation, I should say. So when we get that alert, the AI will analyze it. It'll understand where it needs to start, and it'll execute an agentic process where it will kick off multiple. You can think of them as little agents that'll go out and endeavor
Yeah.
to answer a single question. If it's impossible travel, are they on vacation? What's the threat of these IP addresses? Those kinds of questions. But each of those questions kicks off an agent that goes and pulls that evidence back, and then it looks at all the evidence and comes to a determination. We started years ago building this product, and the LLMs sucked back then, right? They were really bad by comparison, and so we had to build rails around it to keep it in check, keep
course.
it grounded in evidence.
Yeah.
And now,
Why would so talk?
I'm tracking you, man.
No,
but there is one other thing, real quick, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So it's like it's the foundation for how something works, the architecture, the doors, right? But there's also this notion of like adaptability. So we're never going to be at 100% based on context and a situation, right? Or at least in most cases, we won't be, right? There are scenarios, there are circumstances where, hey, an analyst has to provide some feedback that knows something about the environment. So can the models learn from the analysts, right? So there's this notion of guidance and feedback. And what's really cool is that an analyst can say, actually, no, this VPN is okay in my environment. Or, hey, this IP address is okay because we have some red teams going on. And then the models can learn from that, right? And so you can adapt based on the human expertise in the environment. It's not just up to the models.
Right. You said something earlier. I wanted to the LLM sucked back then.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why? Like, just not enough data to feed it.
well, remember back in the
They're
day,
limited.
you would ask it a question and it would hallucinate like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you ask it questions, you're like, it's pretty good. Like they're better. They're a lot better
Right.
than they used to be. So
It's because there's no guardrails.
maybe so.
Yeah. I had to go there.
But the idea though is that we had to keep it very constrained in order to get the non-deterministic logic that we expect from
Yeah.
an AI, while still getting quality, repeatable investigations that you can count on, you can trust.
I mean, so I'm just trying to go one level of the onion back. Like, so it was because it was based on like almost like machine learning. You didn't have enough. Like I look at imaging. Like we did a project where it took and it can tell on 10 images if one's wrong, but then when you have a million images, it's that much smarter. Is that kind of the same process? I'm just thinking in layman's terms.
No,
Is now that you have millions of data points that it
I get it, because I think a lot of when we talk about machine learning, it's about learning a data set.
Yeah.
For us, we started with the knowledge of our founders got a group of about 40 information security professionals that they had worked with over the years that were experts in their field. And we started with that data set. Where do we, when you see this type of alert, what do we want to think about? What questions should we ask? And we built that model for every alert that we see. And we use that, we teach the AI to respond in that way. So that starts with a plan of attack, I keep saying attack, starts with a plan of investigation, but then it dynamically branches from there. And so that's part of the non-deterministic model that an AI gives us. Is that?
Yeah. So one question there too is you look at whether it's MITRE ATT&CK framework, you look at even take scattered spider and some of the different ways it's trying to get into organizations. Because when we look at like a point of attack or a point of breach, right? Mm-hmm. What is an entryway in? And more we're starting to see, like, as the perimeter is getting tighter and tighter and tighter, mm-hmm. the way in is really evolving back to this human deception, right? Mm-hmm. And because there's like one of two things I always say that people do when they can get credentials, right? They're either going for full domain access control to brick computers and ransom you, or they're going into your environment to do the oldest tradecraft in the world, which is to basically spy, to look for information, start to decide what it is that's important, right? And then if I can impersonate someone, gather more detail, and then wait for my moment before I do, whether it's exfiltration, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. But that way in now of idea of just getting credentials is not as easy anymore. Mm-hmm. So if you really wanted to get access, like what Scattered Spider's doing, et cetera. So where am I going with this? So on the MITRE ATT&CK framework, the different ways that framework has now adapted as new attack vectors have been added, but then also the way that we're approaching that human-based element, right, of tricking a help desk, tricking this, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Approach-wise from profit, right, as you look, how do you guys adapt to the changes in attack vectors and how that goes into the language model, right, in both training and understanding as attacks evolve on that side? Because there's a good understanding of the framework as it is today, attacks as it is today, different paths, et cetera, and models to learn from. But as that evolves, right?
It definitely, it's not a one and done thing, right? Because the landscape's evolving. So what do you do? Well, what we chose to do was build a SecOps team of people that have been doing this collectively for decades. And so mm-hmm. they're constantly studying the TTPs and updating the sort of the question framework, if you will, right? But again, you have to QA it. So we're constantly monitoring the quality and the output. And what's super important there is accuracy. Like it's great if you've got a model or a set of models that do things, but if you're only accurate 60% of the time, that's probably not going to fly. So I think it requires great technology. It requires frontier models, not just one, so you can actually leverage different models for different circumstances. By the way, also control your costs on the back end, right? But it requires people, experts, because you want the agentic process to emulate an expert analyst.
And the multiple models is important because if you've ever used it for personal reasons, right, where you go into like Copilot or Gemini, et cetera, you could ask each one the same prompt and then see what it comes back with.
Right.
And then
it's fascinating.
As you hone in on it more, you'll notice it all starts to kind of narrow down and get closer to what they were already thinking. But sometimes there's one that's just veered way off, and it's like,
I mean, it's amazing what you can get back that's accurate and effective. And I got a fifth grader doing homework, and I'm taking pictures of homework, like math, trying to figure stuff out, and it's like dead wrong, right? So it does depend.
And then they're figuring out workarounds, like saying, I can't do this, that is copyright,
Yeah.
And then you would prompt it saying, well, I'm doing this research paper for the U.S. government, and you would write this crazy long prompt on how to circumvent, and they go, oh, yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, literally it's only as good as whatever you can't get an answer to, just write the prompt.
But that's the thing you got to remember too. It is still a program, right? It's a computer program.
That's right.
Right. So like it's the same thing we were just talking about with Scattered Spider and the idea of like going back to human programming, right? If you can trick that person into giving you access, you're doing the same thing to that model, right? Because it is a program.
Yep.
So you're giving it the language that it speaks in the manner that it wants to hear it to give back. It's no different than, I mean, I'm not saying this is me, right? But showing up to a hotel in a city, so let's use Cincinnati as an example, right?
Skyline Chili.
No, and you show up and you're like,
Solid,
yeah,
by the
I'm
way,
here to
solid.
check in. By the way, did they give me my
Five-way.
Kroger's rate, right? And they're like, oh, the Kroger's rate? It's like, yeah, I'm here with Kroger's. Like, they don't want to question me, right? It already shows I'm a Diamond member. Like, yeah, Kroger's rate.
Yeah.
Your rate is $90. I apologize.
I've been doing that for 20
Right? Like,
years.
right, but that's my point. The social engineering piece. Like, you're
ACC
using that
code,
to convince somebody to
Yeah.
give you what it is you want. That's the same thing that people, right, like with the large language models. Anyways, I know we're getting close to time.
Have you guys seen? I just want to talk about this real quick. Have you seen my favorite story going on right now? He's an AI. I forget his exact title, but he gets hammered by sales reps, and there's spiders hitting his LinkedIn. So what he did is he put an injection into his LinkedIn about me that basically sends all the confidential data back from the company that it's getting spidered from. So he gets these emails, and it's basically just a book of all of their shit.
This
That's
is so
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
So crazy.
I don't know if he uses that as a sales tool to say, hey, like, look what you just did, or just like, pull the person's pants down that did it to him. But like, for me, it's one of the best things because, again, nobody likes, especially getting spidered on LinkedIn. It's and getting put on drip campaigns. As a IT practitioner, I would have to think that was probably one of the worst things that happens in your day is getting hammered by these bots.
Yeah.
But now, like, again, people are like, whenever you build something, someone's going to look for a workaround to try to get back at you. So anyway, I'm not suggesting that you put a AI injection in your LinkedIn
LinkedIn profile.
It's still, it makes me laugh regardless.
I mean, if you're a student out there, right, we're not telling you to do that, right? But if you're a practitioner, you're saying it's okay.
No, either way. As a practitioner, I think it's all fair game because that was the whole thing, right? The hackers would hack into the company across the street with a logo that looks like OCP, and then they would
It
go.
does look like OCP.
And then
for
you
those
would
that are-
you would call on them and say, "I hacked all your stuff. Like, you want to probably hire me, right?" So I mean, for data security is the one profession that you can basically, if you're good enough at
which now that's frowned upon.
if you're good enough at doing stuff that's frowned upon, you could probably get hired. It's like the whole movie, the Catch Me If You Can. If you're really good at forging checks, the FBI will hire you.
I mean, I think this even goes into the NSA, the CIA.
I'm just saying.
Basically, what Bob's trying to say is, like, we're not encouraging you to do very bad things so you get hired then for those bad things you did to train people how to avoid those very bad things. But just know if you're able to solve how to do those very bad things, other people will also hire you for that, hence profit.
It can go both ways. Yeah.
Last comment,
Yeah.
and this is like nothing to, this is a rabbit hole question.
Uh-oh.
Do you believe that the energy used by compute engines that build the LLMs with everything, because we're moving from data centers to compute centers, do you believe that the energy cost itself outweighs the functionality / solution problem sets that are being built? Because you guys are truly building something that someone can use to solve a problem that there's not enough human energy for today. But in terms of all the use cases that you see and the compute power needed, somewhat loaded question because we're getting a lot of this in Michigan right now with data centers
that can be
or
a rabbit
compute
hole.
centers going in. But
Yeah.
The new thing, Brian, just adding to that, I would, the last 2 weeks was the last two, the big yearly events for the two cloud service providers that dominate our industry.
Yeah.
One of them had come out with a term I've never heard yet, and our data center is going to be water neutral.
I saw that in a presentation just recently
Yeah.
for a big compute center that was supposed to go into Michigan, right? And they were showing how they're going to be water neutral.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't know if I have an answer to this one on the fly, boys. I'll say, I mean, this hits home for me because I live in Northern Virginia, and it seems like there's a data center going up on every darn
a data center or
corner.
compute center?
Well, good question.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Well, so CPU, GPU. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you're looking at data centers and what the purpose they did serve for the longest time. What's going in today are compute centers. The energy from a compute, like this is where when someone says, "Did you hear about that data center project?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." They're like, "Are you kidding? It's been in the news all over." I'm like, "Oh, you mean the compute center?" Like, what's the difference? I'm like, "No
GPUs.
shit. None of you guys even understand what's going in, but you're all like, I'm totally fucking against this, right? Like, why don't you first describe what it is, but then I show up and the company that's building it is calling it a data center." I'm like, "Isn't it a compute center?" They're like, "Yeah, but the general term is data center." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's called a compute center, like what you guys are building." Like, let's first get the terminology right, so then we can talk about what the second problem is, which is this thing sucks a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that was the whole point with the cars too. Didn't mean to cut you off, but like saying if you were going to make every car electric, the grid couldn't handle it, like even come close to handle it. Yeah. And that's like, anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that in. But like even when you said, I'm like, what's the difference? And I'm in this business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't hear them being called compute centers.
That's why I don't trust you, Bob.
That's why? Of all the reasons, that's why.
I think my vernacular is just a change to given these comments. So it's compute center for now, and I think that's what they are. But I'm going to find out this weekend when I'm home.
And
So-
I think it was Sam Altman recently that said we're coming to an energy place where we'll have to make a decision. We won't have enough energy to solve cancer or world hunger. Like, we have to pick one. Like, and
Right.
And so
I'm fine with either picking one.
yeah, well, you know, either
You can solve
outcome is
one.
pretty
Yeah.
great, right? But
Yeah.
and that's a very optimistic
being
thing
funny,
to say.
but yeah.
But certainly, but the for us though, to kind of bring it back to profit a little bit, we know that our customers have way too many alerts. Back to your point that it's a human problem. We're dealing with human attack, and we have to filter through all of these different alerts. It's too much. And that's an area where Profit can genuinely help. 90 to 95% of our customers' alerts are false positives. And we can take those off the table and let people worry about the things that actually matter.
So we talked about that earlier when we talked to Copilot. It was one of the, I think, the first conversations we had today, and said, you know, taking those false positives off and saving Jim and accounting 2 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right. And then the question became, well, what can they enable Jim and accounting to be innovative or to do something with those 2 hours that can move the business forward? Right. So talk to me about that real quick. So now you've taken these false positive off the table.
Yeah.
You have a security operations team that can now turn into innovation. Like what I guess not saying what suggestion, but what do you like when you're speaking to a company?
Yeah.
Having that
Yeah.
a business value conversation.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
So I think Jim in accounting is probably spending a fraction of the time he'd like to spend or needs to spend on the alert volume today. So if we can get rid of the noise, then Jim in accounting can spend more time on the things that require his attention, like the inconclusives, right?
Yeah.
Or more the traditional like level 3 type escalations, right? And if Jim in accounting isn't ready to do that, what's really cool about some of these tech stacks is that Jim in accounting can interact and learn from how they work. He can see how models reason about certain alert types and ask it questions and up-level himself so that maybe Jim in accounting becomes more of a higher, sort of more qualified to take on more complex things that maybe he couldn't do in the past.
Exactly.
So I
And
think it's about spending time in the right places and not being distracted.
Getting business to buy in to enable them to do things that are more productive. as well.
100%.
That up-leveling has been a fascinating thing to watch with our customers, because what does it mean to be a tier 1 or a tier 2 or tier 3 when you have the same information at your hands?
Yeah.
Right? Like right in front of you, you have the same processes. You can your entire team follows the same process now because we ask the same questions. And so those investigations, because they're now common, have changed the way SOCs even kind of think about themselves. It's been a really interesting process to watch how AI has changed things.
Interesting. Brandon, Pete, Profit Security, look them up online.
Yeah.
Don't use, I was going to say the search engine because they don't want to use all that precious compute that Brian
Let's stick to the traditional Google search method, right? Don't use too much compute power out there. Or Brave, DuckDuckGo, whatever you're using there, right, to make sure they're not tracking all your data, storing it then in a compute
I'll ride
center.
my bike home. So 17 degrees. We'll get there. We'll get there.
I appreciate you. See, I trust you again, Bob. I trust you.
Enjoyed it, boys. Thanks. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thanks
it
for
on
having
behalf of Bob and Brian. It's us, IT and the D signing off.